Chris, you and I have talked about the fact that these indigenous plants that you're finding all over the world and helping bring to our attention have wonderful opportunities to help our health or regain our health. Please explain to me what takes place once that we found that something is efficacious to our health, and how do we take it from there to the place where we're able to find it either through our doctor or through our health food store?
Okay, that's sort of the bingo question. You know, botanists have done a lot of research on plants that most people in, say, this environment haven't heard about at all. So often when I get onto a particular plant, like cat's claw in the Amazon, or dragon's blood, which is a latex from the Amazon, there's already a very, very good body of science. The challenge is to develop trade for that. Native people want trade in medicinal plants. So what has to happen is you have to figure out, okay, how can this particular plant or plant part be harvested in a sustainable way so that the plant doesn't go extinct, it doesn't damage the forest or whatever environment it grows in. And then there are all kinds of practical matters. How do you get that to port? If you harvest something in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, but maybe it's going to be processed in an extraction facility in France or New Jersey or wherever, you got to figure out, okay, the stuff has to be harvested, aggregated, dried, packed, shipped. All of those logistics have to take place. And then the question is, let's say I go to a shaman in the Amazon. I say, I got pain in my joints. The odds are good that shaman's going to make me like a big pot of cat's claw extract, which has anti-inflammatory, pain-relieving properties, okay? That's great. But what if I can't go to the Amazon and hang out with a shaman who knows how to use this because their grandmother taught them that? That's where you really apply science to these things. If we know that a certain group of compounds is responsible for the anti-inflammatory activity, then we have to stabilize or standardize an extract to a certain level of those compounds, so that when you or I walk into Whole Foods or Walgreens or wherever it is we're going to go to get an herbal preparation made from that plant, we can be sure of reproducible results. So I like to think of the field to finish process as sort of an arc. I spend a lot of time in the first half of that in the field with native people, figuring out how to get this stuff to port. And then scientists and people who are specialists in extraction technology and processing and manufacture kind of take over from there and develop finished extracts and materials that you and I can take for our own health. I also work on the market side with media in a variety of ways to make people aware of these things so that they know that if they're in pain, they can turn to something called cat's claw. If their skin is damaged, they can turn to something called dragon's blood. If they have, they repetitively get colds, they can turn to something called umka. They've got to be introduced to these things through the media. Otherwise, they won't know they exist.
And to a great degree, these sometimes or many times can be used as an alternative to prescription drugs.
Often, botanicals can be used as alternatives to prescription drugs. And I don't even, it's funny, I don't even like the term alternative medicine. I'll tell you why. Plants are the most widely used medicines in the world. We've been using plants that we know of for 60,000 years. If you date back to a Neanderthal that was found with a pouch of medicinal plants in Iraq in the 60s. So for a long, long, long time, human beings and proto-humans have been using plants as medicines. Our affair with synthetic drugs has been very, very brief in the course of time, and to this day, far fewer people use these products than use plants. So I tend to think of plant medicine as the real, legitimate, consistent, proven, tested medicine available to humanity. And this flirtation that we've had with synthetic and often highly toxic drugs as a very brief period in our history. So I think of the drugs as the alternative. Furthermore, if you look at mortality data, approximately 300,000 Americans die every year from the proper use of over-the-counter and prescription drugs. I'm not talking about crack cocaine and heroin. I'm talking about the drugs that you walk into a drugstore and buy, or that are recommended to you by your doctor. Most years, nobody in the United States dies from taking herbs. So if you look at safety, it's crazy what happens to people when they take drugs. You know of people who've taken a drug and then had to take another drug to lower some of the awful effects of the first drug. You know, gastric upset, insomnia, impotence, any number of problems. So I really think that the alternative drugs, and to a great extent the failed drugs, are the over-the-counter and the prescription products.
Chris, I want to thank you very much. I'd also like to say for anyone that's tuned this in that they recommend it to 3, 4, or 5 other people, because you're right on.
Thank you.